Okay, so get this. My sister-in-law, my husband's actual sister, copied my entire cupcake business and is trying to run me out of town. And when I say copied, I don't mean she was inspired by me. I mean she stole my life's work, put a different sign on it, and opened up 2 blocks away from my shop in Park Slope. I cried so hard the day I found out that I actually made myself sick. I couldn't even look at a bag of flour without feeling my stomach turn. But let me tell you something. You guys, 6 months later, I was the one making her sick to her stomach, and it tasted sweeter than any buttercream I've ever made. So, let's go back. Before all this, we were family. I'm Maria. I'm 32. I've lived in Brooklyn my whole life, and for the last 5 years my baby hasn't been a person. It's been my shop. Brooklyn Bakes. It's this tiny, cozy little spot on 7th Avenue. You know the kind. The bell on the door jingles when you walk in. It always smells like vanilla and coffee, and the counter is this big, worn-out piece of wood that's seen more spilled sprinkles than I can count. This place was my dream. I'm not kidding. I worked as a waitress for 10 years, saving every single tip, sketching logos on napkins during my breaks. I went to baking classes at night. My apartment constantly had a fine dusting of flour on every surface. My husband, Mark, God love him, used to joke that he'd find powdered sugar in his socks. This shop was built on pure sweat and a dangerous amount of caffeine. And then there's Jessica, Mark's younger sister. When Mark and I first started dating, Jessica and I got along great. Or so I thought. She was always so interested, so supportive. When I finally opened Brooklyn Bakes, she was my biggest cheerleader. She'd come in every weekend, buy a dozen cupcakes, and post them all over her Instagram. My sister-in-law is a baking genius. Brooklyn Bakes, best cupcakes, NYC. It felt good, you know? To have family in your corner. She started coming around more and more. Oh, Maria, I'm so bored with my marketing job. Can I just come hang out at the shop today? I love the smell. At first, it was sweet. She'd wipe down counters or help me fold boxes when we got a big order. She was a fixture. My regulars knew her. Hey, Jess, they'd say. She loved it. She soaked up the attention. Then the questions started. They were subtle at first. Wow, this red velvet is amazing. What makes it so moist? I'd laugh and say, a little bit of coffee and a whole lot of love. But she'd press. No, seriously. What kind of coffee? Like espresso powder or brewed? I didn't think anything of it. She was family. I trusted her. I was wearing my favorite faded green apron that day, the one with the little frosting stain on the pocket that never came out. I remember I was trying to perfect a new lavender honey cupcake, and my hands were sticky. She came behind the counter, peering over my shoulder. So, where do you get your vanilla from? Is it the expensive Madagascar stuff? What's your profit margin on one of these little guys anyway? I should have seen it then. It wasn't curiosity. It was research. She was taking notes. Mental, and I'm pretty sure actual notes on her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The worst part, the part that keeps me up at night, was about a year ago. She came to me, all fake concern. Maria, she said, her voice all syrupy sweet. I was just thinking, all your amazing recipes are in that old stained notebook. What if there was a fire, or you spilled coffee all over it? You should really digitize them. Let me help you. I can type them all up into a nice organized Google Doc for you, as a backup. And like a complete idiot, an absolute fool, I thought, wow, that's so thoughtful. I spent a whole weekend with her, reading out my measurements, my secret techniques, the specific brand of chocolate, chips I use that makes my cookies so gooey. I handed her my entire business, my 5 years of trial and error, on a silver platter, and I thanked her for it. I actually hugged her and told her she was the best sister-in-law in the world. I want to throw up just thinking about it. Okay, so fast forward to last month, the day everything exploded. It was a Tuesday morning around 10 a.m. It was a little slow, so I was arranging the Brooklyn Blush cupcakes, my signature flavor, a strawberry champagne cake with a hint of rosewater. in the display window. My phone rings. It's Mrs. Gable, one of my oldest customers. She's this sweet old lady who comes in every Tuesday for a lemon cupcake. "Maria, darling," she says, "I just have to tell you the new shop is lovely. I was just walking by. I didn't know you were expanding. Congratulations." I literally froze. My hand was hovering over a cupcake. Expanding? I could barely afford my rent this month, let alone a second. Location. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Gable. What new shop?" "Oh, the one down the street. Sweet Dreams Cupcakes. It looks just like yours. Same lovely pink awning and everything. It's wonderful to see you doing so well." My heart didn't just drop, you guys. It plummeted. It went through the floor, through the concrete, and straight into the subway tunnel under my feet. I mumbled something to Mrs. Gable and hung up. My hands were shaking. Sweet Dreams Cupcakes, 2 blocks away. I ripped off my apron, told my one employee I'd be right back, and I walked. I didn't run. I walked because I think some part of me was trying to delay the moment I knew was coming, the moment my world would fall apart. And there it was. It was like looking into a funhouse mirror. A slightly cheaper, slightly colder version of my own dream. The awning was the same pastel pink. The font of the sign was almost identical. And in the window, displayed on the exact same kind of 3-tiered cake stands I use, were cupcakes. Not just any cupcakes. I could see a pale pink one with a little edible pearl on top. My Brooklyn blush. I saw a dark red one with cream cheese frosting. My red velvet. I saw my lemon zing, my midnight chocolate, my salted caramel kiss. They were all there. It was a lineup of my own creations, staring back at me from behind another woman's glass. I felt a wave of nausea. I pushed the door open. The little jingle from the bell was even the same. And there she was, Jessica, standing behind the counter, wearing a pristine pink apron, no stains on it at all. She looked up and saw me, and for a split second I saw panic in her eyes. But then it was gone, replaced by a cold, hard smile. "Jessica," I said. My voice came out as a whisper. "What is this?" "Maria! Hey!" she chirped, like I'd just bumped into her at the grocery store. "What do you think? Cute, right?" I finally decided to follow my passion, just like you. I just stared at her. I pointed to the cupcakes in her display case. "Your passion? Jessica, those are my recipes. That's my Brooklyn blush cupcake. You even stole the name." She had the nerve to laugh. A little, condescending chuckle. She wiped a non-existent crumb off the counter with a cloth. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's just a cupcake. No one owns a recipe for strawberry cake." "This isn't just a strawberry cake," I said, and my voice started to tremble with anger. "This is 5 years of my life. You were in my kitchen, asking me questions, pretending to help. You were spying on me. You copied everything." And that's when she dropped the act. The fake sweet smile vanished. She leaned on the counter, her expression turning into a smug, ugly smirk that I will see in my nightmares for the rest of my life. She looked me right in the eye, and she said the words that lit a fire inside me. "Business is business, honey. May the best baker win. Honey." She called me honey, like I was some naive little girl she'd just outsmarted. I felt the blood drain from my face. I felt dizzy, humiliated. All the people walking by on the street, the sounds of the city, it all just faded away into a low hum. It was just me and her in this stolen version of my dream, and she was gloating. It hurt so much because it wasn't a stranger. It was my family. It was the woman who I'd welcomed into my business, into my kitchen, into my heart. She had used my own trust and kindness as a weapon against me. I didn't say another word. I just turned around and walked out. I didn't go back to my shop. I just walked. I walked all the way to Prospect Park and sat on a bench and just broke. I cried until I couldn't breathe, until my head was pounding. I thought about the thousands of hours, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, and I thought, this is it. I'm ruined. She's going to steal my customers. She's going to win. For a whole day, I let myself believe that. I let her win. But as I sat there wiping my eyes, the memory of her smirk came back. Business is business, honey. And I thought to myself, no, this isn't over. I thought about that Google Doc with all my recipes, the one she so kindly typed up for me, and I remembered the long email chain we had about it. This I will not let go. She picked a fight with the wrong baker. After that day, it felt like the whole world was a different color. A dull, gray, defeated color. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jessica's smug face, heard her say, "May the best baker win." It played on repeat, like a broken record. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding, my stomach in knots. I felt this constant knot of anxiety that just wouldn't loosen. I was supposed to be excited about my business. It was my passion, my life. But now, every time I walked into Brooklyn Bakes, I felt this heavy weight of dread. I kept thinking, how could she? How could she do this to me? She wasn't just stealing customers. She was stealing my joy, my pride, my identity. I started obsessing over it. I couldn't focus at work. I'd forget orders, mix up delivery times. My poor employee, Chloe, kept giving me worried looks. "Maria, are you okay? You seem really out of it." I'd just force a smile and say, "Just tired. You know how it is." But it wasn't just tiredness. It was this gnawing feeling of injustice that consumed me. I'd stare at my phone, willing Mark to say something, to tell Jessica off. But he just kept saying, "Maria, she's my sister. Maybe it's a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding? Did he not see the identical cupcakes? Did he not hear her words? And then, a few days later, as I was lying awake at 3 a.m., scrolling mindlessly through old emails, something clicked. It was like a tiny spark in the darkness. I remembered something Jessica had said a while back when she was helping me organize my recipes into that Google Doc. She'd been complaining about how slow her own computer was, how she was always losing files, and she'd mentioned something about her cloud storage, how she had an old account with tons of old stuff on it that she never used. She'd even told me the name of the service, something like Store Away, or something equally forgettable. I sat bolt upright in bed. My hands started to shake, but this time it wasn't from fear or sadness. It was from a sudden jolt of adrenaline, of purpose. My mind raced. What if she hadn't just copied my recipes? What if she had actually stolen them? Like, literally copied the digital file? I knew how tech-savvy she thought she was, always showing off her new apps and gadgets. It wasn't beyond her to do something like that. I couldn't sleep the rest of that night. I was so wired, so hopeful. Hopeful for the first time since seeing her shop. The next morning, I went straight to my laptop, not to my shop. I logged into my personal email, the one I used for my old cloud storage account. I went through the folders, and there it was. A folder labeled Brooklyn Bakes Recipes, Master Copy. I had created it ages ago, when I first started, just to keep everything safe. And in that folder, I found the original files, my detailed ingredient lists, my step-by-step instructions, my notes on frosting consistency, my timings, everything. But then I did something else. I went back through my email archives, searching for every single email I had ever exchanged with Jessica about the shop, about recipes, about baking. It took me hours. I was looking for anything. And then I found it. An email from Jessica, sent about 18 months ago. The subject line was something innocent like, "Question about your buttercream." But the body of the email, it wasn't just a question. It was her asking me to clarify a measurement for my vanilla bean paste. And then, in the same email, she'd attached a file. A file titled, My Amazing Cupcake Recipes.docx. My blood ran cold. I opened the attachment. And there it was. My red velvet, my salted caramel, my Brooklyn blush, every single one of my signature recipes, word for word, measurement for measurement, exactly as I had written them down. She had attached my recipes to an email to me, asking a question about one of them, probably as a way to cover her tracks, to make it look like she had her own, and was just comparing notes. Yeah. Nerve! The sheer audacity! This was it. This was the proof. This was the smoking gun. I felt a surge of power, a sense of calm settling over the storm of anxiety. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a detective. I had the evidence. I started to formulate my plan. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about justice. It was about taking back what was mine. I knew I couldn't just storm into her shop with the email. That wouldn't be enough, and it would just make me look crazy. I needed to be strategic. I needed to hit her where it hurt, where she was most vulnerable, her reputation, and her newly built, albeit stolen business. I thought about all the things she'd said, all the ways she'd tried to get information out of me. She was clearly insecure, trying to prove herself, trying to make a name for herself by riding on my coattails. She wanted the success, the recognition, but she didn't want to do the hard work. She wanted to be the best baker without actually being the best baker. She just wanted to look like it. I realized I had to do this alone. Mark wouldn't understand. He'd try to mediate, to make peace, and my friends, they were supportive. But this was a family thing, and also, frankly, a business thing, and I needed to handle it with the cool head of a business owner, not the emotional outburst of a betrayed sister-in-law. I spent the next few weeks in a strange sort of double life. By day, I was Maria, the stressed but dedicated owner of Brooklyn Bakes. I was still perfecting recipes, talking to customers, managing inventory. But by night, and during my lunch breaks, I was Maria, the master strategist. I reread the email. I stared at the document. I started to see the weaknesses in her facade. She had my recipes, yes, but she didn't have my years of experience, my customer relationships, my actual talent. She was just a copycat. I started small. I began subtly reaching out to some of my most loyal customers who lived closer to her shop, not to complain, but just to check in. Hey, Mrs. Henderson, just wanted to see how you were doing. We haven't seen you in a while. Everything okay? And some of them, bless them, would say, Oh, Maria, we've been going to that new place, Sweet Dreams, but it's just not the same. The frosting isn't as good. Bingo. My customers knew the difference. They could taste the authenticity. I also started subtly tweaking my own recipes, just a tiny bit. Nothing drastic, nothing that would be obvious to a regular customer, but just enough to make them even more unique. A touch more sea salt in the caramel, a different kind of zest in the lemon, a slightly richer dark chocolate blend. I was evolving, innovating. She, on the other hand, was stuck with my 5-year-old recipes. The biggest hurdle was my fear. What if she found out I had the proof? What if she tried to twist it, to say I was trying to sabotage her? What if her lawyers, if she had any, tried to make me look like the bad guy? I had moments of doubt, sitting at my computer, my finger hovering over the send button for an email. I'd think, maybe I should just let it go. Maybe it's not worth the drama. But then I'd remember her smirk, and I'd remember the feeling of utter devastation when I first saw her shop. And I'd remember that Google Doc she so helpfully created. That's when I knew I couldn't back down. I had to do this. I had to reclaim my dream. So I prepared. I made sure I had copies of everything. The original email, the attached file, screenshots of her Instagram posts from before she opened her shop, where she'd been asking me all those innocent questions. I even took photos of her shop front, noting the identical elements to mine. I wasn't going to confront her blindly. I was going to go in with a plan, with undeniable proof, and with a confidence I hadn't felt in months. The anticipation was building. I knew what I had to do, and I knew it would change everything. She thought she had won. She had no idea the real game had just begun. The moment I chose wasn't in a shop, over the phone, or through some angry text message. No, that would have been too easy, too private. I needed witnesses. I needed the full, uncomfortable, undeniable truth to come out in the one place she couldn't run from, a family dinner. So, the day was a Sunday, about 3 weeks after I found my evidence. My mother-in-law, Carol, had invited us all over for her famous roast chicken. It was a normal Sunday thing, something we did once a month. I knew Jessica would be there, and I knew she'd be insufferable. I spent the entire morning getting ready, and I wasn't just picking out an outfit. I was putting on armor. I chose a simple black sweater, nothing fancy, but it made me feel serious. My hands were a little shaky as I did my makeup, but by the time Mark and I got in the car, I felt this strange, cold calm wash over me. I had my phone in my purse, fully charged. My evidence was ready. We walked into my in-laws' house, and the smell of rosemary and roasted potatoes hit me. It was so normal, so domestic, it almost made me lose my nerve. Almost. And then I saw her. Jessica was already there, holding court in the living room, a smug little smile plastered on her face. She was telling Mark's dad, Tom, all about the incredible first month her shop has had. The neighborhood just loves it, she was saying, her voice dripping with false modesty. I can barely keep the rosy dreams in stock. Rosy dreams. That's what she called her version of my Brooklyn blush. The rage, which had been a low simmer, started to bubble. Mark squeezed my hand, a silent, "You okay?" I just nodded. Not yet. The timing had to be perfect. Dinner was tense, at least for me. Everyone else was laughing and passing the mashed potatoes, but I was just moving food around my plate. Jessica kept shooting me these little triumphant looks from across the table. She thought she was winning. She thought I was beaten. She had no idea she was a dead woman walking. Then came the moment. The perfect, beautiful, horrible moment she handed to me on a silver platter. My mother-in-law stood up to clear the plates for dessert. "Oh, no need, Mom," Jessica chirped, jumping up from her chair. "I brought dessert tonight." She pranced into the kitchen and came back with a pink bakery box. Not one of my boxes, but one of hers, with Sweet Dreams cupcakes, printed on the lid in that nearly identical font. She placed it in the center of the table like it was a trophy. Inside were a dozen perfect cupcakes, my recipes, my life's work, sitting on her cheap cardboard throne. "I thought everyone could try the product that's taking Park Slope by storm," she announced, beaming at everyone. Everyone murmured about how lovely they looked. My father-in-law took a red velvet. Mark's mom took a lemon one. Jessica picked up a rosy dream and held it out to me. "Here, Maria, you should have one. Maybe you can pick up a few pointers." You guys, you could have heard a pin drop. Mark froze. His mom looked horrified. Jessica just stood there, holding the cupcake, with that vicious little smirk on her face. That was it. That was my cue. I didn't take the cupcake. Instead, I gave her a slow, sweet smile. The first real smile I'd had in weeks. "Wow, Jessica," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "It looks incredible. It looks so familiar. You know, the crumb on that red velvet is so specific. It took me 6 months to get that balance of buttermilk and vinegar just right. Tell me, how long did it take you?" Her smile faltered. "Just a little. I have a natural talent, I guess," she stammered. "A natural talent," I repeated, nodding slowly. "That's amazing. It's almost like you had the recipe handed to you." "Oh, wait." I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I unlocked it and opened my email. "You did." I turned the phone around for the whole table to see. There it was. The email from her, dated 18 months ago. The subject line, "Question about your buttercream." And the attachment, clear as day. "My amazing cupcake recipes docs. Do you remember sending this to me, Jessica?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "You attached this document. A document full of what you claimed were your recipes. But that's funny because they look exactly like the ones from my master recipe book, the one you so helpfully helped me digitize." Her face. Oh my God, you guys. Her face. It was a masterpiece of horror. The color drained from her cheeks. She went from smug to sheet white in about 2 seconds. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. She looked from the phone to my face, to her mom, to her dad. She was trapped. That's not what it looks like, she finally whispered, her voice cracking. I was just using yours for inspiration, as a template. A template? I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. Jessica, it's word for word, down to my personal note about using Nielsen Massey vanilla extract. You didn't just copy my recipes. You copied my notes. You stole my entire business model, my branding, my signature flavors, and you've been lying to this entire family about it. He started to cry then. Big, ugly crocodile tears. No, you're twisting it. You're just jealous because my shop is doing better than yours. But it was too late. Nobody was buying it. Her dad, Tom, who had been quietly listening, put his fork down with a loud clink. He looked at his daughter, his face a mixture of disappointment and disgust. Jessica, he said, his voice low and firm. Is this true? She just sobbed, unable to even look at him. My mother-in-law looked like she'd been slapped. She stared at me, then at Jessica. You told us you developed these recipes yourself over years, she said, her voice trembling. You lied to us. Mark, my sweet husband who had wanted so badly to believe in his sister, just looked broken. He stared at Jessica and just shook his head, a single, slow movement of pure disillusionment. He finally saw her for who she was. That's when I felt it. Not excitement, not even joy. It was a profound sense of relief. Vindicating, soul-deep relief. The heavy weight I'd been carrying for a month finally lifted. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't being dramatic. I was right. And now, everyone knew it. Jessica tried one last time. You're trying to ruin me, she shrieked at me through her tears. No, Jessica, I said, finally standing up. You ruined yourself. I just turned on the lights. And with that, I put my phone back in my purse. Mark stood up with me. The dinner was over. Jessica was still sobbing. Her dad was staring grimly at the table, and her mom was just shaking her head in disbelief. As we walked to the door, I didn't feel pity. I felt free. It had been more emotionally exhausting than I ever expected, but it worked. It worked exactly the way I wanted it to. She didn't just lose an argument. She lost her credibility. She lost her family's respect. In that moment, surrounded by the wreckage of her lies, she had truly lost. The car ride home from that dinner was the quietest Mark and I have ever been. It wasn't an angry quiet, though. It was a heavy, somber quiet. After about 10 minutes, Mark reached over and put his hand on my knee. He didn't say anything, but he didn't have to. It was a gesture that said, I see it now. I'm with you. I'm so sorry. That night, the divide between us, the one Jessica's actions had created, finally closed. We were a team again. The fallout from that dinner was immediate and catastrophic, for her. The next day, my father-in-law Tom called me. His voice was tired. He apologized for not seeing it sooner, forever, doubting me. He told me he and Carol had sat Jessica down after we left. It all came out. The lies, the planning, the sheer, calculated deceit. She admitted everything. They were devastated. They weren't just angry. They were profoundly disappointed in the person their daughter had become. As for her business, Sweet Dreams Cupcakes didn't even last another 3 months. You have to understand, Park Slope is a real neighborhood. It's not some anonymous part of Manhattan. People talk. The story got out. I didn't have to say a word. I'm sure it started with Carol telling her sister, or Tom mentioning it to his friend from the hardware store. The truth has a way of spreading, especially when it's a juicy story about family betrayal and stolen cupcakes. My customers, the ones who had been tempted to try her shop, started coming back in droves. They'd come up to the counter and say things like, Maria, I'm so sorry. I heard what happened. We're so glad you're here. My business didn't just recover. It got stronger. People weren't just buying cupcakes anymore. They were supporting a story. They were supporting the underdog, the original, the person who had put in the actual work. I'd walk past her storefront on my way to the bank sometimes. First, the crowds disappeared. Then, the lights in the display case were off more often than they were on. One day, I saw a handwritten, "Closed for maintenance" sign taped to the door. A week later, a real estate agent was putting a big, ugly "For rent" sign in the window. And just like that, Sweet Dreams Cupcakes was gone. It vanished as quickly and as artificially as it had appeared. Do I feel bad about it? Honestly, not for a second. I would do it all over again. I don't celebrate her failure, but I don't mourn it either. It was a consequence she earned all by herself. For a while, I felt this lingering bitterness, but seeing that empty storefront didn't fill me with glee. It just felt correct, like the world had righted itself. Justice doesn't always have to feel like a party. Sometimes it just feels like quiet, satisfying peace. Today, Jessica and I have no relationship. We see each other at Christmas and Thanksgiving, and it's brutally awkward. She won't make eye contact with me. She gives me this tight, forced little smile and mumbles, "Hello?" And that's it. The rest of the family has been amazing. My in-laws, Tom and Carol, have made such an effort to show me that I'm their family, that they respect me and my work. Our relationship is actually stronger now. And Mark? He's my rock. He saw his sister's true colors, and while it hurt him deeply, he chose our marriage, he chose integrity, he chose me. So what did I learn from all this? I learned that your dream is worth fighting for. I learned that when people show you who they are, you have to believe them the first time. And I learned that family isn't an excuse. It's not a license to treat people badly, to steal from them, or to take their kindness for weakness. Family is supposed to be your safe place, and when someone poisons that, you have every right to protect yourself. I'm standing in Brooklyn Bakes right now. It's a Tuesday morning, just like that horrible morning when I first found out. The bell on the door is jingling, the shop smells like fresh-baked cookies, and Mrs. Gable is at the counter, picking out her weekly lemon cupcake. Everything is exactly as it should be. The business is thriving. I'm developing new recipes that are all mine, and I sleep soundly every single night. Jessica tried to steal my business, but in the end, she couldn't steal the most important ingredient: me. My hard work, my passion, my years of trial and error. You can copy a recipe, but you can't copy a soul. And let me tell you something, a lesson I think she finally understands. Never, ever mess with a Brooklyn girl and her cupcakes.